At the family dinner, her billionaire husband mocked her for being barren and divorced her. 2 years after the divorce, he saw her with twins and a ring from his business rival. The champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattered against the marble floor, but he didn't hear it. He couldn't hear anything except his current wife's voice cutting through the ballroom like a knife. Becca White stood beside him, staring at the woman on stage. The ex-wife, the one Damon had divorced 2 years ago for being barren, the one holding twins in her arms. Becca's voice rose loud enough for 3 tables to hear. "Who is that woman, Damon?" It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Before he could answer, his ex-wife Amelia took the microphone. Her voice carried through the sound system with perfect clarity. 2 years ago, a doctor told me I could never have children, that my body was fundamentally broken. Inhospitable, he called it. She paused. Her eyes swept the ballroom and landed directly on Damon. I believed him, because he was an expert, because I trusted medical authority, and because the man I'd married needed me to be the problem. Becca's hand shot across the table, gripped Damon's wrist hard enough to bruise. "You told her she was infertile. Damon, please, let me explain." Becca stood abruptly. Her chair scraped against marble. People at nearby tables turned to stare. "Explain what? That you destroyed an innocent woman to hide your own inadequacy. Keep your voice down." But Becca's voice only got louder. "Is that why you won't touch me? Why you've avoided intimacy for our entire marriage? Because you knew if I didn't get pregnant, I'd start asking questions." On stage, Amelia continued speaking. "But my body was never broken. The marriage was, and these 2 beautiful children, Robbie and Rachel, are proof that sometimes the cruelest lies come from people who claim to love you." The applause was thunderous, but all Damon could hear was Becca's next question. "How much? What? How much did you pay the doctor to lie?" Silence. Damon's mouth opened, closed. No words came out. "How much, Damon?" 50,000. The admission hung in the air like a bomb. Becca laughed. It was a terrible sound. "You paid $50,000 to destroy her, to make her believe she was broken, so you could divorce her without anyone knowing the truth." She turned to Damon's mother, Brenda Cooper, who stood frozen 3 feet away. "Your son has been lying to you for years. He's the one who can't have children. He always was. And he let you torture that poor woman rather than admit it." Becca removed her wedding ring, her engagement ring, dropped them both on the table with deliberate care. "I'm filing for divorce. My father's company will immediately divest from Cooper Industries, and you can explain to everyone here why the White family wants nothing to do with you." She gathered her purse, looked back at Damon one last time. "You're a coward hiding behind women's pain." Then she walked away. The entire ballroom watched her go, watched Damon sit there, exposed, destroyed by his own lies in front of everyone who mattered. "Now, family, I know you're wondering how we got here, how a woman declared barren ended up on that stage with twins while her ex-husband's life collapsed in real time. To understand that, we need to go back 2 years, back to when Amelia's nightmare began. And I'm warning you right now, what the Cooper family did to this woman is the kind of cruelty that hides behind expensive smiles and polite words, the kind that destroys you slowly, so no one outside the house sees the knife going in. But you're gonna see it. Every cut, every wound, every moment they made her believe she was worthless. Because by the time we get back to that gala, by the time justice comes, you're gonna understand why that moment was so sweet. Let's go back. Before we dive in, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now if you're ready for a story about justice. Real justice. The kind that restores your faith that the truth always comes out eventually. And drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Or just say I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, because this story is about to take you on a journey, and I need to know you're with me. Subscribe and turn on those notifications, because I bring you stories like this every single week. Stories about people who refuse to stay broken, who fight back, who prove that dignity and truth are more powerful than lies. All right, family, let's begin. 18 months into her marriage, Amelia Simon Cooper sat on the cold marble floor of the master bathroom, her back pressed against the shower wall. In her trembling hands, A pregnancy test. One pink line. Just one. Negative. Again, she closed her eyes and tried to remember how to breathe. Tried to remember a time when this bathroom hadn't felt like a tomb. When marriage hadn't felt like a prison sentence. When she'd believed Damon Cooper loved her. The bathroom was enormous. Italian marble covered every surface. Gold fixtures gleamed under designer lighting. A soaking tub sat in the corner, big enough for 3 people. The kind of bathroom women dreamed about. The kind that announced wealth and status and privilege. To Amelia, it felt like the place where hope came to die. Every month. Same ritual. Same result. Same crushing weight of failure pressing down on her chest until she couldn't breathe. A sharp knock on the door made her flinch. The pregnancy test clattered against the marble. Same as always, I presume. Victoria Cooper. No. Brenda Cooper, Damon's mother. Her voice cut through the heavy wood like a blade. Amelia pressed her palms against the cool floor. Tried to steady her breathing. Tried to find words that wouldn't come. I'll take your silence as confirmation. Brenda's voice dripped with disdain. The kind of contempt that wealthy women perfected over generations. The kind that made you feel small without them ever raising their voice. How utterly predictable. Amelia heard expensive heels clicking against marble. Getting closer to the door. Do try to compose yourself before dinner. We have guests. I'd hate for them to see you like this. A pause. Then quieter, but somehow infinitely worse. Broken and useless. The bathroom door clicked shut. The sound of heels faded down the hallway. Amelia sat there on the floor of a bathroom that cost more than her childhood home, and wondered how much more of this she could survive. How many more months of this torture? How many more times she could hear that word? Broken, defective, useless, worthless. The words cycled through her mind on repeat until they stopped sounding like words at all. Just noise. Just the soundtrack to her destruction. Family, that was a monthly ritual. Every single month for 18 months, Brenda Cooper stood outside that bathroom door waiting for results, waiting to see if Amelia had finally done the one thing she'd been brought into the family to accomplish. Produce an heir. Continue the Cooper legacy. Give them what they needed. And every month, the cruelty got sharper. The words cut deeper. The humiliation became more unbearable. Dinner that evening was set with the precision that only old money demanded. Crystal stemware worth thousands of dollars each. China so delicate it looked like it might shatter if you breathed wrong. Fresh flowers arranged by the household staff because Brenda Cooper insisted on fresh flowers at every meal. Appearances mattered. Perfection mattered. And Amelia was failing at both. She took her seat at the long mahogany table, hands folded in her lap, spine straight, trying to look like she belonged, trying to look like she wasn't dying inside piece by piece. Damon sat at the head of the table, where his father used to sit before the heart attack 2 years ago. He scrolled through his phone, barely glanced up when she entered. They'd barely spoken in weeks except for the scheduled times when biology dictated they needed to try. Try. Such a clinical word for what used to be love, what used to be passion, what used to make her feel wanted instead of evaluated. Brenda swept into the dining room wearing Chanel and disapproval in equal measure. Her daughters followed, Cynthia and Laura, both beautiful in that cold, polished way that old money produced, both carrying their mother's talent for making you feel inadequate without saying a word, both watching Amelia like she was a fascinating science experiment. The broken wife, the defective product, the embarrassment. Such a lovely evening. Brenda's voice was pleasant, perfectly modulated. She took her seat at the opposite end of the table. Damon, darling, I had lunch with Patricia Montgomery today. Damon glanced up from his phone. That's nice, Mother. The servers began bringing in the first course. Herb, crusted salmon, roasted vegetables. A wine pairing that cost more than most people spent on groceries in a month. Her daughter Becca is back from Paris. Brenda's voice took on a particular quality that made Amelia's stomach clench. A tone she'd learned to recognize. Danger wrapped in pleasantries. Absolutely stunning girl. She's done remarkably well with her art gallery. Very accomplished. Very well connected. Amelia stared at the salmon on her plate. Her appetite disappeared entirely. I'm glad she's doing well. Damon's attention was already drifting back to his phone, back to emails and spreadsheets and anything that wasn't his wife. Brenda took a delicate sip of wine. Her eyes glittered with something that looked like satisfaction. I've invited her to dinner this Friday. I thought it would be lovely to reconnect with old friends. The fork Amelia had just picked up froze halfway to her mouth. Excuse me. Her voice came out smaller than she intended, weaker. Is there a problem, dear? Brenda's gaze finally landed on her daughter-in-law. Her expression was perfectly pleasant, perfectly poisonous. I'm simply inviting a family friend to dinner. Unless you have some objection. The unspoken words hung in the air like toxic gas. What right do you have to object to anything, you barren failure? Amelia looked at her husband, waited for him to defend her, to put his mother in her place, to remember that he'd married Amelia, not his mother, that Brenda didn't get to invite other women to their home like she was shopping for a replacement wife. Damon shrugged. It's just dinner, Amelia. Don't be dramatic. Something cracked inside her chest. Not broke. Breaking would have been merciful. Final. This was splintering. 1,000 hairline fractures spreading through what little remained of her hope, through what little remained of the woman who'd believed this man loved her. Across the table, Cynthia and Laura exchanged knowing smirks, the kind of look that said they'd been expecting this, planning this, enjoying this. I mean, Diane examined her wine glass like it was more interesting than the conversation. It's not like you're giving him any reason to refuse other company. Camille cut her salmon with surgical precision. Each movement, deliberate, controlled. If you can't fulfill basic wifely duties, can you really complain? When mother seeks out more suitable companions for family dinners, the words hit like a slap, like being punched in the stomach, like having the air knocked out of your lungs. Amelia set down her fork carefully, precisely, because if she didn't focus on the small physical action, she might scream, might throw her plate, might stand up and tell all of them exactly what she thought of their cruelty. Diane, that's enough. She tried to make her voice firm, strong, but it came out shaky, broken. Oh, don't be so sensitive. Cynthia waved a dismissive hand. We're just being honest. It's been 2 years, and you still haven't produced an heir. At some point, we have to face reality. Reality. Amelia stood abruptly. Her chair scraped against the hardwood floor, with a sound that made everyone wince. The reality is that I'm sitting right here while you discuss me like I'm livestock that's failed to breed. The reality is that your brother married me, not some broodmare from your social circle. And the reality is that fertility issues affect couples, not just women. Brenda set down her wine glass with deliberate care. The crystal clicked against the mahogany table. The sound echoed through the sudden silence. Well, her voice was ice. Perhaps it's time we discovered the source of this particular couple's issues. She reached into her designer purse, pulled out a business card, slid it across the table toward Amelia with 2 perfectly manicured fingers. I've made an appointment with Dr. John for you both next week. He's the finest fertility specialist in the city. Very discreet, very thorough. Amelia stared at the card like it was a snake, like it might bite her if she touched it. You did what? I made an appointment. Brenda's tone suggested this was perfectly reasonable, perfectly normal, like scheduling a dental cleaning. We need answers, dear. The company needs an heir. Damon needs a legacy, and you need to either provide those things or stop wasting everyone's time. The room spun. Amelia gripped the edge of the table to steady herself, to keep from falling, to keep from screaming. Mother's right. Damon finally looked at her, really looked at her, and his eyes were cold, distant, like he was looking at a stranger, like he was looking at a problem that needed solving. We should have done this months ago. We need to know what we're dealing with. What we're dealing with. Like she was a broken appliance, like she was defective merchandise, like she was something that needed diagnosing and fixing or throwing away. Amelia wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some shred of dignity, some piece of privacy, wanted to tell all of them to go straight to hell. But she saw the expectation in every face around that table, the certainty that she was the problem, the assumption that her body had failed in the one task that mattered. Maybe she needed the doctor to prove them wrong. Maybe she needed medical evidence that she wasn't the defective one in this equation. Or maybe, the traitorous voice in the back of her head whispered, maybe the doctor will prove them right. Maybe you really are broken. Fine. The word came out flat, emotionless, dead. I'll go to the appointment. Excellent. Brenda smiled like she'd won something, like this was a chess game, and she'd just put Amelia in checkmate. Now, let's enjoy this lovely meal. The salmon really is divine. Amelia sat back down. She pushed food around her plate for the rest of dinner, while conversation flowed around her like she wasn't there. Cynthia talked about her upcoming vacation to the Maldives. Laura discussed wedding plans for her friend's destination wedding in Tuscany. Brenda held court, like the queen she believed herself to be. Nobody asked Amelia how she was feeling. Nobody seemed to notice that she didn't eat a single bite. Nobody cared that she was breaking apart right there at the table. Family, I need to pause here because I need you to understand something. This wasn't a one-time conversation. This was every dinner, every family gathering. Every single time Amelia entered a room with the Coopers, she was evaluated, judged, and found wanting. Her worth had been reduced to one biological function, and she was failing at it, or so they made her believe. 3 days before the doctor's appointment, Amelia made the mistake of trying to reclaim some piece of herself. Some part of the woman she'd been before this marriage consumed her. Before the Coopers made her forget who she was. She'd started a small catering business before the marriage. Nothing huge, just side work she loved. Creating meals, making people happy through food, transforming raw ingredients into something beautiful. It was the one thing that had been purely hers. Brenda had shut it down 6 months into the marriage. Cooper wives don't work. She'd said it over breakfast, casual, matter of fact, like she was commenting on the weather. It reflects poorly on the family, makes it look like Damon can't provide. But Amelia missed it, missed having something that was hers, missed creating, missed the satisfaction of watching people enjoy what she'd made. So, when an old friend called asking if she'd cater a small birthday party, Amelia said yes without thinking, without asking permission, without considering the consequences. She mentioned it at breakfast 2 days later. I'm catering Sarah's birthday party this Saturday. Just a small event. 30 people. Simple menu. Brenda's coffee cup paused halfway to her lips. She set it down slowly, deliberately. The china clicked against the saucer. I'm sorry, what? Just a small catering job. For a friend. I used to do this all the time before. Absolutely not. But absolutely not. Brenda's voice didn't rise. Didn't need to. The authority in it was absolute. We've discussed this. You don't work. You don't embarrass this family by making it look like you need money. It's not about money. Then what is it about, dear? Brenda's smile was razor sharp. Your little hobby. While you fail at your actual job. Your actual job. Getting pregnant. Producing an heir. Being useful. Amelia felt her throat close. Felt tears prick at her eyes. She blinked them back furiously. I just thought. You thought wrong. Brenda stood, smoothed her skirt, looked down at Amelia like she was looking at something distasteful. You'll call your friend and cancel. Today, and you'll explain that you have family obligations that take priority. She walked out of the breakfast room, heels clicking against marble, leaving Amelia sitting there with cold coffee and a dream she'd been foolish to resurrect. That evening, Damon called her into his office. The room smelled like leather and expensive cologne and old money. He sat behind a massive mahogany desk, didn't look up when she entered. I've made some changes to the accounts. He typed something on his laptop, still not looking at her. What kind of changes? You no longer have access to the joint account. You'll have an allowance transferred to your personal account each month. 5,000. Should be more than enough for your needs. Amelia stared at him. At this man she'd married. This man who'd promised to love her, to cherish her, to be her partner. You're cutting me off from our money. My money. Now he looked at her. His eyes were cold, flat, empty of anything resembling love. You don't need independent access. I take care of everything. I'd like some independence. Independence for what, Amelia? His voice had an edge now. Sharp, cutting. To waste money on your little catering hobby while you fail at being a wife. While you contribute absolutely nothing to this marriage except dead weight. There it was. Dead weight. The words hung in the air between them, branded themselves into her soul. I just want. What you want is irrelevant. He turned back to his laptop, dismissing her, like she was a servant, like she was nothing. Your job is to produce an heir. Once you do that, we can discuss hobbies. Until then, I suggest you focus on the one thing you're actually supposed to be doing. He paused, fingers hovering over the keyboard, assuming you're even capable of it. Family, I told you this was going to make your blood boil. And we're not even to the worst part yet. The doctor's appointment, the diagnosis, the lie that destroyed everything. But you need to see how deep the cruelty went. How systematically they broke her down. How they made her believe she was the problem. Because that's what abusers do. They isolate you, control you, make you doubt yourself, make you believe their version of reality. And the Coopers were experts. The night before the doctor's appointment, Damon came to bed late. Amelia was already there, lying in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, trying to quiet the anxiety churning in her stomach. She felt him climb in beside her, felt the mattress shift. Miles of expensive sheets separated them. Damon. Her voice sounded small in the darkness. Yeah, are we okay? Silence. The kind of silence that answered questions you didn't want answered. We're fine, Amelia. He turned away from her, pulled the covers up. I'm just tired. Long day. You're always tired lately. Because I'm trying to run a company while dealing with family pressure about heirs and expectations and everything else. His voice had an edge now. Some of us have real responsibilities, as opposed to her fake ones, her meaningless existence, her failure to do the one thing that mattered. I have responsibilities too. She said it quietly, almost to herself. I'm dealing with the same pressure you are, maybe more, since your family seems to think this is entirely my fault. We'll know more after the doctor's appointment. Damon's tone made it clear the conversation was over. Can we please just sleep? I have early meetings tomorrow. Amelia turned onto her side, facing away from him. She pressed her hand against her mouth to muffle the sound of crying. This was her life now. This cold, distant marriage. This family that saw her as a vessel, not a person. This relentless pressure to produce a child for people who didn't even like her. And in 1 week, she'd sit in a doctor's office and find out if her body really was as broken as everyone believed. The day of the appointment arrived with the weight of an execution. Amelia woke early, stomach churning with anxiety. She dressed in comfortable clothes. There seemed little point in trying to look impressive for a doctor who'd be examining her most intimate failures. Damon was already downstairs when she came down for breakfast. He wore one of his expensive suits, looking every inch the successful CEO. He barely glanced up from his phone when she entered the kitchen. Ready. His tone suggested he was asking if she was ready for a business meeting, not a potentially life-altering medical appointment, as I'll ever be. They drove in silence. Damon's luxury sedan glided through city traffic. Classical music played softly from the speakers. Amelia stared out the window, watched normal people going about normal lives. People who weren't about to be medically confirmed as defective. Dr. John's office occupied the top floor of a medical building in the most expensive part of the city. The waiting room was designed to soothe anxious patients. Soft lighting, abstract art on cream-colored walls, furniture that probably cost more than most people's cars. Everything carefully curated to make devastating news feel less devastating. Amelia sat on a leather sofa that was too comfortable and tried to calm her racing heart. Tried to breathe. Tried to prepare herself for whatever came next. A nurse called them back after only a few minutes. Dr. John didn't keep wealthy patients waiting. The examination rooms were just as expensively decorated. Everything cream and soft edges designed to make you forget you were in a medical office. Designed to make you trust, to believe. Dr. John himself was in his late 50s. Silver hair, authoritative presence, the kind of doctor who made you trust him instantly, who made you believe every word he said because he said it with such confidence. Such certainty. He shook both their hands, gestured for them to sit. "Thank you both for coming in." His voice was warm, professional, perfectly calibrated to put patients at ease. "I've reviewed all the test results from your individual examinations last week. I know you're anxious for answers, so I'll be direct." Amelia's hands clenched in her lap. Beside her, Damon sat perfectly still. "Mrs. Cooper," Dr. John's gaze settled on her with what looked like genuine sympathy. "I'm afraid the news isn't what you'd hoped for." The words hit like bullets, like being shot, like dying. "Your tests show significant abnormalities in your uterine lining. The tissue is severely compromised. Additionally, your hormone levels indicate that natural conception would be extremely unlikely." Severely compromised. Extremely unlikely. The words echoed in her head, branded themselves into her brain. "Are you saying she's infertile?" Damon's voice was carefully neutral. Too neutral. Like he'd been expecting this. "I'm saying that natural pregnancy would be nearly impossible given the condition of her uterus." Dr. John pulled out medical imaging, charts and graphs that might as well have been written in a foreign language. "The uterine environment is, to put it in layman's terms, inhospitable to conception and gestation. Even if an egg were to be fertilized, implantation would be highly unlikely." Inhospitable. The word branded itself into Amelia's soul. Inhospitable. Broken. Damaged. Defective. Worthless. "There are options, of course," Dr. John continued in that same sympathetic tone. "Surrogacy. Adoption. But carrying a child herself is not medically advisable given these results." The room tilted. Amelia couldn't breathe. The air was too thick, her lungs too small. Everything she'd feared, everything Brenda and Cynthia and Laura had implied, everything Damon had made her feel, all of it was being confirmed by medical science. She was broken. Fundamentally, irreparably, unable to perform the one function that mattered. "What about my results?" Damon asked. The question seemed almost an afterthought. Dr. John glanced at another file. "Your tests show normal parameters. No issues on your end." The lie was delivered so smoothly that Amelia almost missed it. Almost, but she saw something flicker across Damon's face. Something that looked like relief. Like he'd been waiting for the doctor to say exactly that. Like he'd been holding his breath and could finally exhale. Later, she'd remember that moment. That tiny tell. That flash of relief that made no sense unless he'd already known what the doctor would say. But in that moment, drowning in her own devastation, she didn't notice, didn't question, just believed. "Thank you, doctor." Damon stood. "The appointment apparently over. We'll discuss our options and be in touch. Take your time." Dr. John's sympathy seemed genuine. "This is difficult news. I'm very sorry, Mrs. Cooper." The ride home was silent. Amelia pressed her forehead against the cool window glass, watched the city blur past through tears. Damon drove with his jaw set, his hands tight on the steering wheel. She waited for him to comfort her. To say this didn't change anything. To promise they'd figure it out. Together. To tell her he loved her anyway. He said nothing. Just drove. Just sat there in silence while his wife fell apart beside him. When they pulled up to the mansion, Amelia saw Brenda's Mercedes already in the circular driveway. Of course, she'd been waiting for the results. Waiting like a vulture, waiting for something to die. They walked through the front door to find Brenda, Cynthia, and Laura arranged in the sitting room like a tribunal. 3 pairs of eyes fixed on them immediately. No pleasantries. No asking how they were feeling. Just demanding the verdict. "Well," Brenda's voice was sharp, impatient. "The doctor confirmed what we suspected." Damon's voice was flat, emotionless, like he was reporting quarterly earnings. "Amelia can't have children. Her uterus is inhospitable." The word echoed through the marble foyer. Branding her, defining her, reducing her entire worth to one biological function she'd failed. "I see." Brenda's expression did something complicated, something that looked almost like triumph hiding behind manufactured sympathy. How unfortunate. Tragic, really. Laura didn't sound tragic at all. She sounded vindicated. "What will you do, Damon?" Cynthia leaned forward with genuine curiosity. like they were discussing a failed business venture rather than a human being's worth. "I'll handle it." Damon's jaw tightened. "I need to think." Amelia stood there in the foyer of the mansion that had never felt like home, surrounded by people who'd never really accepted her, and she felt something inside her go very still, very cold, very quiet. She walked upstairs without a word, locked herself in the bedroom, sat on the edge of the massive bed, stared at nothing, inhospitable, broken, barren, defective, worthless. The words cycled through her mind on repeat until they stopped sounding like words at all. Just noise, just the soundtrack to her destruction. She didn't cry. She'd cried herself dry over the past months. Now she just sat in the silence and waited for whatever came next. It came 3 days later. Damon walked into the breakfast room carrying a leather briefcase she didn't recognize. Brenda sat at the table already, coffee in hand, satisfaction on her face, like she knew what was coming, like she'd orchestrated this moment. "We need to talk." Damon set the briefcase on the table, opened it with decisive clicks, pulled out a stack of papers, legal documents. Amelia saw the header before her brain could fully process the meaning. Petition for dissolution of marriage. Divorce papers. Her fork clattered against the china plate. What is this? Exactly what it looks like. Damon slid the papers across the table toward her, along with a pen. "I need you to sign them." The world tilted sideways. Amelia gripped the edge of the table to keep from falling out of her chair. "You want a divorce." "I need a divorce." He corrected her like it was an important distinction. "This isn't working, Amelia. It hasn't been working for a while now. We both know it. We've been married barely over 2 years. Her voice sounded distant to her own ears, like someone else was speaking. "We made vows. We promised forever." Damon looked at her then, really looked at her, and the coldness in his eyes froze her blood. "I made a mistake." He said it simply, stated it like a fact. "I married you thinking you were enough, thinking love was enough. But it's not. You're not." The words landed like punches. Amelia felt each one impact her chest, her throat, her heart. "What are you talking about? I've done everything you asked, everything your family demanded. I've supported you, taken care of this house, been here for you, even when you stopped being here for me." "Exactly." Damon's voice rose with frustration that had apparently been building for months. "You've been here, just here, in this house, working your meaningless little catering jobs on the side, contributing nothing to my life except dead weight, dead weight." There it was again, that phrase, that definition of her worth. "Is that what I am to you?" She repeated the words slowly, tasting them, feeling them cut. Yes, the casual cruelty of it stole her breath. "My family's company needs an heir. I married someone who can't help, who has no connections, no money, no influence. You're ordinary, Amelia. Painfully, desperately ordinary. And I need extraordinary." She could tell him right now, could reveal that she came from more money than he could imagine, that before her father died, he'd built a pharmaceutical empire worth billions, that she'd been living under her mother's maiden name during their marriage, hiding her wealth deliberately, wanting to be loved for who she was rather than what she had. But pride sealed her lips. If he wanted to throw her away thinking she was ordinary and worthless, then let him. Let him live with that choice. Let him discover his mistake when it was too late to matter. There's someone else. It wasn't a question. She'd known. Somewhere deep down, she'd known. "Dora." Damon didn't even have the decency to look ashamed. "We've been seeing each other for a few weeks. Her family wants to invest in Cooper Industries, help us rebuild after my father's death. It makes sense, Amelia. She comes from the right background, understands my world, can actually be an asset instead of a liability. You're cheating on me." The betrayal somehow felt worse than the divorce itself. "I'm making a practical choice." He corrected her again with that infuriating calm. "Love doesn't save companies. Love doesn't pay for the lifestyle I deserve. Love doesn't fix anything. Love is everything." Tears finally spilled over despite her best efforts. Love is why we got married. Love is what we promised each other. We were kids, playing house. Damon dismissed 2 years of marriage with a wave of his hand. I grew up. You stayed ordinary. That's not my fault. He pushed the papers closer, along with the pen. Signed them. I've already signed. My lawyer will file tomorrow. You'll get a settlement. 200,000. Nothing life-changing, but enough to start over somewhere. How much? Brenda leaned forward with interest, like they were discussing a business transaction, because that's exactly what this was to them. 200,000, Damon repeated. Amelia laughed. The sound came out harsh, broken, slightly unhinged. $200,000 for 2 years of emotional abuse, for being degraded and humiliated by your family, for having my worth reduced to my reproductive organs. You should be grateful he's offering anything. Brenda's voice turned sharp. Your damaged goods, dear, failed to provide the one thing you were brought into this family to accomplish. Consider yourself lucky Damon is being generous enough to give you anything at all. Something inside Amelia crystallized, hardened into something diamond-sharp and unbreakable. She stood slowly, every muscle trembling with rage and grief, and something new, something fierce. I'll sign your papers. Her voice came out quiet but steady. But know this, Damon, you're making the biggest mistake of your life, not because of what I can or can't give you, but because you're too weak to stand up to your poisonous family. You're too cowardly to love someone unconditionally, and you'll spend the rest of your life regretting this moment. She picked up the pen. Her hand shook, but she signed every page where the little tabs indicated. Signed away 2 years of her life. Signed away the man she'd loved. Signed away the fairy tale she'd been foolish enough to believe in. When she finished, she pushed the papers back across the table. There, you're free. Free to marry your suitable socialite. Free to pretend you're not a coward, hiding behind your mother's skirts. Free to live your extraordinary life. She turned to Brenda. And you're a miserable woman who gets joy from destroying others because you've never built anything worth having on your own. I actually pity you. Brenda's face flushed with rage. How dare you? I dare because I have nothing left to lose. Amelia smiled. It felt feral, dangerous. You took everything. My marriage, my dignity, my hope. But you know what? You can't take my future, and mine is going to be so much brighter without any of you in it. She walked out of the breakfast room with her spine straight and her head high, walked up the stairs to pack the one suitcase of belongings she'd brought to this marriage. Everything else, all the designer clothes and expensive jewelry and trappings of wealth, belonged to the Coopers. She wanted none of it. An hour later, Damon's lawyer delivered the settlement check. $200,000. Her price, apparently. Amelia took it without a word, took her suitcase, took one last look at the mansion that had been her prison, and she walked away. She didn't look back. The apartment Amelia rented with her settlement money was a studio in a part of the city the Coopers would never visit. The building had seen better decades. The plumbing made concerning noises. The radiator clanked all night like it was haunted. It was the most beautiful place she'd ever lived, because it was hers, just hers. No Brenda monitoring her calendar, no Damon looking at her with disappointment, no Cynthia and Laura discussing her inadequacies over tea, just Amelia, and silence, and space to fall apart completely. She lay on her second-hand mattress that first night and stared at water stains on the ceiling. And she finally let herself break. The sobs came from somewhere deep and primal. Grief for the woman she'd been before the Coopers. Rage at the injustice of it all. Pain from the betrayal of someone she'd trusted with her whole heart. But underneath all that, something new was growing. Something fierce and determined. They don't get to define you. She whispered it to herself through tears. You are more than their cruelty, more than his cowardice. More than that doctor's diagnosis. She cried until she had nothing left, until her body was empty and wrung out, until even tears wouldn't come anymore. Then she got up, washed her face, looked at herself in the bathroom mirror of her tiny studio apartment, and she decided to rebuild. Amelia had always loved cooking. It was the one thing that had been purely hers before marriage. Creating meals, transforming raw ingredients into something that brought people joy. During her marriage, the Coopers had employed a private chef. When Amelia had offered to cook, Brenda had patted her hand condescendingly. How quaint. But we have people for that, dear. Now, in her cramped studio with a barely functional stove, Amelia cooked for herself, and she remembered who she'd been before Damon Cooper made her forget. The first meal she made was simple. Pasta carbonara, her father's favorite. He'd died when she was 19, but she remembered standing beside him in their kitchen, watching him create magic from bacon and eggs and cheese, watching him smile when the sauce came together perfectly. He'd taught her that cooking was love made visible, that feeding someone was the most intimate gift you could give. She stood in her tiny kitchen and made carbonara with shaking hands. The bacon sizzled, the eggs whisked smooth, the pasta cooked perfectly al dente, and when she took that first bite, sitting alone on her second-hand mattress, she cried. Not from sadness this time, from remembering, from tasting home, from finding a piece of herself she'd thought the Coopers had destroyed. The next day she made soup. The day after that, bread. Each meal was a prayer. Each dish was an act of defiance. Each time she created something beautiful in that tiny kitchen, she proved to herself that she wasn't broken, that her hands could still make magic, that she still had value beyond what the Coopers believed. But cooking for herself wasn't enough. She needed purpose, needed income, needed to build something. So, 2 weeks after moving into the studio, Amelia started looking for work. She applied to restaurants first, sent her resume to every high-end establishment in the city. She had experience. She had training. She had talent, but she had no recent references, no proof of employment for the past 2 years. And when potential employers called the Cooper mansion for verification, they got Brenda. Mrs. Cooper did some light cooking as a hobby. Nothing professional, certainly nothing that would qualify her for a position in a serious kitchen. After the 5th rejection, Amelia stopped applying to restaurants, started looking at catering companies instead, started considering going back to what she'd done before. Small events, private parties, building from the ground up. She found work at a catering company that provided staff for events, not cooking, not creating, just serving, carrying trays, refilling glasses, standing for 12 hours in uncomfortable shoes while wealthy people who reminded her of the Coopers talked through her like she was furniture. The pay was terrible. $15 an hour, but it was something. It kept the lights on, kept food in her tiny refrigerator, kept her from having to touch the settlement money she was saving for something bigger. 3 months into her new life, an old friend from her event planning days called. Sarah, the same friend who'd asked Amelia to cater that birthday party, the one Brenda had forced her to cancel. Amelia, oh my God, I've been trying to reach you for months. What happened? Are you okay? Amelia sat on her mattress with the phone pressed to her ear and felt tears prick her eyes at the genuine concern in Sarah's voice. I got divorced, she said it simply. Didn't elaborate. I'm starting over. I'm so sorry. Do you need anything? Actually, Amelia took a breath, decided to be brave. Are you still looking for a caterer for your mom's birthday party? There was a pause, then Sarah's voice came back warm and excited. You're cooking again? I'm trying to. Then yes, absolutely yes. It's next month. 40 people. Can you handle that? Amelia looked around her tiny studio, at the miniature stove, at the lack of counter space, at the impossibility of preparing food for 40 people in this space. Yes. She said it anyway, said it because she needed to, because saying no meant staying stuck, meant staying small, meant letting the Coopers win. I can handle it. They discussed menu options, budget, timeline. When they hung up, Amelia sat there with her heart racing and her hands shaking and the terrifying realization that she'd just committed to something she had no idea how to execute. But she figured it out. Rented commercial kitchen space by the hour at a culinary school that offered time to professionals. Planned a menu that could be mostly prepped in advance. Spent 2 weeks testing recipes in her tiny kitchen until she had everything perfect. Used half her settlement money to buy ingredients. Quality ingredients. The kind that made food sing. The day of the party, Amelia worked for 18 hours straight. Prepping, cooking, plating, transporting everything to Sarah's mother's house. Setting up, serving. She moved through exhaustion like it was water. Pushed past the voice in her head that said she wasn't good enough. That said she'd fail. That said the Coopers were right about her. And the food was extraordinary. Every dish prepared with precision and creativity and love. The kind of food that made people stop mid-conversation. That made them close their eyes when they took the first bite. That made them ask who catered this event. Sarah found Amelia in the kitchen 2 hours into the party. Everyone is raving about the food. My mom is obsessed. She wants your card. Amelia didn't have cards, didn't have a business name, didn't have anything except the clothes on her back and the talent in her hands. I'll get some made. She said it with more confidence than she felt. Sarah hugged her, tight and warm and genuine. I'm so proud of you. This is incredible, Amelia. It was the first time in 2 years someone had said they were proud of her. The first time someone had seen her value. The first time she'd felt like maybe, just maybe, she could do this. The party ended at midnight. Amelia cleaned up, packed her equipment, drove back to her studio apartment in the beat-up Honda Civic she'd bought with settlement money. She climbed the 3 flights of stairs to her door, let herself in, collapsed on her mattress, still wearing her catering blacks, and she smiled, a real smile, the first one in months. Sarah paid her $2,000 for that event. It wasn't much, barely covered her costs, but it was proof that she could do this, proof that her talent mattered, proof that she had value beyond what Damon Cooper believed. Word spread. Sarah told her mother. Her mother told her book club. The book club ladies hired Amelia for a luncheon, then a garden party, then a charity event. Each job led to another. Each success built her confidence. Each client became a reference. 6 months after the divorce, Amelia had catered 24 events. Small gatherings, nothing huge, but consistent work. Enough to pay rent, enough to eat, enough to keep building. But it wasn't easy. Family, I need you to understand that. This wasn't a fairy tale where everything suddenly worked out. This was brutal, exhausting, soul-crushing work. There were failures. There were disasters. There were nights when Amelia wondered if the Coopers had been right all along. There was the corporate luncheon where she accidentally used salt instead of sugar in the dessert, where 30 executives bit into lemon bars that tasted like the ocean, where the event coordinator told her she'd never work in this city again. There was the anniversary party where her car broke down on the way to the venue, where she had to take 3 buses carrying boxes of food, where she arrived 2 hours late and the clients demanded a full refund. There was the wedding reception where another caterer showed up claiming they'd been hired, where Amelia had to prove she had the contract, where the bride screamed at her in front of 200 guests because the confusion had delayed dinner service. Each failure felt like confirmation, like proof that she really was ordinary, really was worthless, really was broken. But she kept going, kept showing up, kept cooking, because what else was there? Going back to the Coopers wasn't an option. Giving up meant they won. And Amelia was done letting them win. She started seeing a therapist 8 months after the divorce. Dr. Kim, a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a no-nonsense manner. Amelia paid out of pocket, couldn't afford it, did it anyway because she was tired of the voices in her head, tired of believing the lies. You're not broken. Dr. Kim said it in their first session. You were abused, systematically, deliberately, but abuse doesn't define you. It's something that happened to you, not something you are. Amelia cried through most of that first session, and the second, and the third. Slowly, painfully, she started to untangle the Coopers' version of reality from actual truth, started to separate her worth from her fertility, started to believe that maybe, just maybe, she deserved better than what they'd given her. A year after the divorce, Amelia's catering business had a name. Amelia's Table. Simple. Direct. Hers. She'd saved enough to rent a small commercial kitchen space. Nothing fancy. A bare-bones industrial space in a warehouse district that smelled like concrete and possibility. But it was hers. Her name on the lease. Her equipment. Her dream. She hired one assistant, Marcus, a culinary school dropout who needed work and didn't ask questions about her past. He was talented, hard-working, loyal. Together, they catered events that started getting noticed, not by the elite, not by the society pages, but by normal people, by small business owners and community organizers and families celebrating milestones, people who appreciated good food, who understood value, who treated Amelia like she mattered. 18 months after the divorce, Amelia's Table had a waiting list. Not long, just 2 weeks out. But it was something. Food critics started noticing. A local magazine did a small feature on up-and-coming caterers, put her photo on page 47, not the cover. But somewhere, she was building something real, something meaningful, something that was hers. The work was still brutal. She still fell into bed each night too exhausted to dream. But the exhaustion felt different now. Earned, purposeful. She was creating instead of being destroyed. 2 years after the divorce, Amelia stood in her commercial kitchen on a Tuesday afternoon. The lunch rush was over. Marcus was cleaning prep stations. The radio played softly in the background. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer. But something made her pick up. Miss Simon. The voice was professional, efficient, female. This is Patricia Chen from the Clark Foundation. We're hosting our annual charity gala next month. 300 guests. We'd like to discuss contracting your services exclusively for the event. Amelia's hand tightened on the phone. The Clark Foundation. She knew the name. Everyone did. It was one of the largest charitable organizations in the country, founded by the Clark family. Old money, real money. The kind that made even the Coopers look middle class. I'd be honored to discuss it. Her voice came out steady despite her racing heart. When would you like to meet? The meeting was scheduled for the following week. Amelia spent those 7 days preparing like she was going to war, developed 3 potential menu options, created tasting samples, put together a presentation that showcased everything she'd built in the past 2 years. She arrived at the Clark Foundation offices wearing her best suit. The building was all glass and steel and money, the kind of place designed to make you feel small. But Amelia wasn't small anymore. She'd been broken down and rebuilt herself into something stronger. She walked into that meeting with her spine straight and her portfolio in hand. Patricia Chen was an elegant woman in her 50s. She greeted Amelia warmly, led her to a conference room where tasting samples were already set up. They discussed menus and logistics and dietary restrictions. Patricia tasted each dish Amelia had prepared, made thoughtful notes, asked intelligent questions. "This is exceptional work," Patricia finally said. "Your food has a quality that's hard to describe, like you're putting pieces of yourself into every dish." "I am," Amelia admitted. "Cooking is how I make sense of the world, how I create something beautiful from raw materials. It's personal for me, not just business. I can tell." Patricia smiled. "I think you'd be perfect for our gala. Let me introduce you to our director. He likes to meet all our major contractors personally." She stepped out of the conference room, returned a moment later with a man who made Amelia's breath catch. He was tall, well over 6 feet, dark skin, sharp cheekbones, eyes that seemed to see straight through pretense. He wore a custom suit, like it was a second skin, radiating the kind of confidence that came from generational wealth and genuine achievement. "Miss Simon." His voice was deep, warm. "I'm Noah Clark." He extended his hand. Amelia shook it, felt something electric pass between them, something that made her heart stutter. "Your food is extraordinary." Noah's smile was genuine. "I've attended hundreds of charity events, eaten meals prepared by world-renowned chefs. Yours is the first that made me actually want to meet the person responsible." "That's very kind." Amelia managed to keep her voice steady despite the flutter in her chest. It's honest. He held her gaze a moment longer than strictly professional. Patricia tells me you started your business just over 2 years ago. That's impressive growth. I was motivated. She didn't elaborate on what had motivated her, didn't mention the divorce or the destruction or the desperate need to prove her worth. But something in Noah's expression suggested he understood anyway, that he saw the story written between the lines. They talked for 20 minutes, ostensibly about the gala, about menu options and logistics, but Amelia felt the conversation sliding into something more personal. Noah asked about her training, her inspiration, why she'd started her company. She found herself answering with unusual honesty, drawn in by his genuine interest, by eyes that actually saw her, not what she could provide, not what she was worth. Just her. Have dinner with me. He said it suddenly, not as part of the business discussion, just out of nowhere, not catered, not business, just dinner. You and me and a meal we don't have to prepare or serve. Amelia's first instinct was refusal. The last thing she needed was involvement with another wealthy man. Another situation where power imbalances could destroy her. She'd just gotten her life back, just started believing she had value. She wasn't ready to risk her heart again. I don't think that's a good idea. She said it carefully, professionally. Why not? Because men like you come with complications I'm not interested in navigating again. Noah studied her with those penetrating eyes. Someone hurt you badly. It wasn't a question. Amelia felt unexpected tears prick at her eyes, blinked them back furiously. That's not your concern. Maybe not. Noah agreed. But I'd still like to have dinner with you. No complications, no expectations, just 2 people sharing a meal. If you hate it, I'll leave you alone. But if you don't, maybe you'll give me a chance to prove that not all wealthy men are the same. She should have said no. Every rational part of her brain screamed to protect herself, to avoid risking her heart again, to stay safe behind the walls she'd carefully constructed. But she looked at this man, this stranger who'd asked about her story instead of just her services, who'd seen something in her food that went beyond technique, who made her want to be brave one more time. One dinner, she heard herself say. That's all I'm promising. His smile could have powered the city. One dinner is all I'm asking. That first dinner changed everything. Noah took Amelia to a small Ethiopian restaurant in a neighborhood far from the glittering towers of wealth he inhabited. The kind of place with mismatched chairs and walls covered in photographs of a homeland thousands of miles away. My mother immigrated from Addis Ababa when she was 19, Noah explained as they settled onto low-cushioned seats around a traditional mezhab table. She taught me to appreciate authenticity over pretension, to value substance over show. I could have taken you somewhere expensive and impressive, somewhere designed to overwhelm you with money and status. But then you'd think I was trying to buy your attention. I want you to know me, Amelia, not my bank account. And who are you? She asked, surprising herself with genuine curiosity. A man who inherited his father's business empire and his mother's social conscience. Noah's expression turned thoughtful. Someone trying to use obscene wealth for actual good while recognizing the privilege and responsibility that comes with it. A workaholic who forgets to eat unless my assistant reminds me. And someone who's been searching for something real in a world built on transactions and appearances. He paused. His gaze held hers across the shared platter of injera and colorful wats. And someone who hasn't been able to stop thinking about you since you walked into that conference room, looking determined and terrified, and like you'd conquered the world through force of will and perfect seasoning. Amelia laughed. The sound felt rusty from disuse. That's quite a speech. I've been practicing it for 3 days, Noah admitted with a self-deprecating grin. Did it work? Maybe. She allowed, felt her walls cracking despite her best efforts. They ate with their hands in the traditional way, tearing pieces of spongy injera bread and using it to scoop up spiced lentils and tender beef. The intimacy of shared food, of fingers occasionally brushing, of feeding each other bites and laughing when the wat was spicier than expected. Tell me about you, Noah said, the real you. not the professional caterer or the polished business owner. Who is Amelia Simon when no one's watching? She hesitated. The instinct to protect herself warred with an unexpected desire to be known. I'm someone who's rebuilding, she said finally. Someone who lost herself for a while and is trying to remember who she was before everything went wrong. What went wrong? The question was gentle, no pressure, just invitation. Amelia took a breath. Then, surprising herself, she told him, not everything, not all the brutal details, but enough. She told him about marrying someone she thought loved her, about a family that never accepted her, about months of trying to get pregnant while being monitored and judged and degraded, about a doctor's diagnosis that had broken something inside her, about divorce papers served over breakfast while her mother-in-law watched with satisfaction. He told me I was ordinary. Amelia's voice shook despite her efforts to stay composed, that I wasn't enough, that I could never be enough. And for a long time, I believed him. Noah listened without interruption, his expression growing darker with each detail. When she finished, he reached across the table and took her hand. I'm going to say something, he said quietly, and I need you to hear me. You are not ordinary. You are not broken. You are not defined by whether or not you can have children. You are brilliant and strong and extraordinary. And anyone who made you feel otherwise is a fool. You don't know that I can't have children. Amelia started, but Noah squeezed her hand gently. I don't care. The words were firm, final. I care about you, Amelia, the woman in front of me who rebuilt herself from nothing, who creates beauty and feeds people with joy, who survived cruelty and came out stronger. That's who I see. That's who I want. Tears slipped down her cheeks before she could stop them. I'm scared, she whispered. I'm scared of trusting again, of letting someone close enough to hurt me. I'm scared too, Noah admitted, but I think you're worth the fear. 3 months passed. Dinners became coffee dates. Coffee became walks through botanical gardens. Walks became cooking lessons in Amelia's commercial kitchen, where Noah proved. Hilariously incompetent with a knife, but utterly charming in his determination. I'm going to cut off a finger, he announced after his third attempt at dicing an onion resulted in pieces of wildly varying sizes. You're supposed to curl your fingers under. Amelia demonstrated again, patiently, like this. The knife guides along your knuckles. My knuckles don't want to cooperate. Noah complained, but he tried again, focused with the same intensity he probably brought to business negotiations. Watching him struggle with something so simple, so human, made something warm bloom in Amelia's chest. This was different from Damon. Everything about this was different. Noah showed up consistently, reliably. He texted her good morning every day, brought her coffee during brutal catering prep sessions, attended every event she catered, not to check on her work, but to steal moments of connection. He introduced her to his mother, Michelle, a graceful woman who embraced Amelia immediately and shared family recipes with conspiratorial delight. My son speaks of nothing but you, Michelle said, as they cooked together in her kitchen one Sunday afternoon. Noah had been called away to handle a business emergency, leaving the two women to bond over food. You've captured his heart completely. I'm trying not to break it, Amelia admitted. I'm trying to be brave enough to let him capture mine, too. Love requires courage. Michelle's hands moved with practiced ease, shaping injera, the courage to be vulnerable, to trust again after being hurt. But you're stronger than you know, child. I can see it in how you move through the world. 6 months after that first dinner, Noah took Amelia to his penthouse rooftop. She'd been there before. They'd spent countless evenings on this rooftop talking and laughing and slowly building something real. But tonight was different. The rooftop had been transformed with string lights and candles. A table set for two under the stars. What's all this? Amelia asked, her heart beginning to race. This is me being terrified and brave at the same time. Noah took her hands, led her to the center of all those lights. I know you're scared, Amelia. I know you've been hurt. I know you have every reason to protect yourself, and never trust anyone again. But I love you, he continued, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. I love your strength and your creativity and the way you laugh when you think no one's listening. I love how you season food by instinct and how you care about making people happy through what you create. I love your resilience and your vulnerability and your absolute refusal to stay broken. He dropped to one knee, pulled out a velvet box. I love all of you, exactly as you are, and I want to spend my life proving that you can trust me with your heart. The ring inside was a sapphire, her birthstone, not a traditional diamond, something chosen specifically for her. I'm not asking you to forget what happened before. Noah said, I'm asking you to believe in what we can build together. Marry me, Amelia. Let me love you the way you deserve. Let me be your partner and your safe place and the person who sees you every single day. Amelia thought about Damon, about the cold marriage built on expectations and obligations, about signing divorce papers while his mother watched with satisfaction. And she thought about Noah, who shows up, who asks questions, who sees her, really sees her, and chooses her anyway, who makes her want to be brave one more time. Yes, the word came out choked with tears. Yes, oh God. Yes. He slipped the ring on her finger and stood, pulled her into a kiss that tasted like salt and joy and new beginnings. They married quietly, 6 months later. Small ceremony, just people who genuinely loved them. Michelle officiated through a friend who was ordained. She spoke about love as daily choice, partnership as mutual respect and support, marriage as two people choosing each other over and over again. Amelia wore a simple cream dress, carried wildflowers, felt beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with money or status. When Noah looked at her walking down the makeshift aisle in his penthouse, his eyes were wet with emotion. You're everything, he whispered when she reached him. Everything I didn't know I was looking for. Now, family, I know what you're thinking. Here we go. Another man. Another marriage. Is she just replacing one husband with another? But hold on, because what Amelia built with Noah wasn't what she had with Damon. This wasn't about status or heirs or meeting family expectations. This was about two people choosing each other, supporting each other, building something based on honesty and respect. Noah didn't save Amelia. She'd already saved herself. He just met her on the other side, met someone who was already whole, already strong, already proven. And that matters. That changes everything. 8 months after that wedding, 8 months of building a life together, 8 months of Noah supporting her business and Amelia supporting his foundation work, 8 months of happiness that felt almost too good to be real. Amelia missed her period. She stared at the calendar on her phone, counted days, recounted, felt her heart start to race. She'd been regular her entire adult life. Clockwork. The missed period could mean stress, could mean the travel they'd been doing disrupting her cycle, could mean nothing, or it could mean everything. Amelia bought a pregnancy test on her way home from a catering event. Her hands shook as she paid for it, as she carried it home. As she locked herself in the bathroom of the penthouse she now shared with Noah, she took the test, set it on the counter, forced herself to walk away while the results developed. 3 minutes felt like 3 years. When she finally looked, 2 pink lines stared back at her. Positive. Impossible. Dr. John's voice echoed in her memory. Your uterine lining is severely compromised. Natural conception would be extremely unlikely, inhospitable. But the test didn't lie. Amelia took another test, then another, then a fourth, all from different brands, all showing the same result. Positive, 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 positive. She sat on the bathroom floor surrounded by positive pregnancy tests and felt her world tilt sideways. How was this possible? The doctor had been so certain, so clinical in his assessment, had shown her imaging and test results and used words like compromised and inhospitable and impossible. Unless, the thought formed slowly, terribly, unless he'd been lying. Unless Damon had orchestrated the whole thing, paid the doctor to make it seem like she was the problem. protected some secret of his own by destroying her. The possibility made her physically ill. "Amelia," Noah's voice called from the bedroom. "You okay in there? You've been in the bathroom for a while." She looked at the tests scattered around her, at the evidence of a miracle or a lie, at proof that her body had never been broken at all. "I'm pregnant." She said it. Then, louder, "I'm pregnant." The bathroom door opened immediately. Noah stood there with concern and confusion on his face. "What?" She held up one of the tests, hands shaking. "I'm pregnant. I'm 8 months married to you, and I'm pregnant. And the doctor told me it was impossible. He said my uterus was inhospitable, that I could never carry a child naturally." Noah dropped to his knees beside her, took the test from her hands and stared at it, then at her, then back at the test. "Pregnant." He repeated, "We're having a baby. I don't understand how." Amelia's voice broke. "Unless the doctor lied. Unless Damon paid him to lie. Unless everything they made me believe about my body was poison disguised as medicine." Noah pulled her close, one hand immediately moving to her still flat stomach with reverent wonder. "We'll figure it out," he said carefully. "Doctors can be wrong, or maybe someone lied to you. We'll get answers, but right now," he pulled back to look at her face, "right now we're having a baby, our baby, and I've never been happier in my entire life." The appointment with Dr. Kim happened 3 days later. Amelia had found a new doctor, someone with no connection to the Coopers or Dr. John, someone who came highly recommended by Michelle. Dr. Kim was a woman in her 40s with kind eyes and a matter-of-fact manner that immediately put Amelia at ease. "Let's see what we're working with," she said, positioning the ultrasound wand. "How far along do you think you are?" "Maybe 8 or 9 weeks." Amelia gripped Noah's hand hard enough to hurt. "Based on when my last period was." The ultrasound screen flickered to life. Dr. Kim moved the wand slowly, searching, her expression intent. Then she smiled. "Oh my. Well, this is interesting." Amelia's heart hammered against her ribs. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong." Dr. Kim turned the screen so they could see clearly. "But you're not having one baby. See these 2 distinct sacs, 2 heartbeats. You're having twins." The world stopped. Amelia stared at the screen, at 2 tiny lives pulsing with existence inside her supposedly inhospitable uterus. "Twins," Noah breathed, his hand tightening on hers. "We're having twins, 2 very healthy babies," Dr. Kim confirmed. "Based on measurements, I'd say you're about 10 weeks along. Everything looks excellent. It'll be a challenging pregnancy carrying twins, but I see no medical reason you can't do this successfully." "But another doctor told me." Amelia's voice shook. "He said my uterine lining was compromised, that natural conception was impossible, that my uterus was inhospitable." Dr. Kim frowned. She pulled up Amelia's medical records that had been transferred. "Read through them carefully. I'm not seeing any indication of uterine abnormalities here," she said slowly. "Your hormone levels are perfect. Your uterine lining looks completely healthy. I don't know what that other doctor was basing his diagnosis on, but from what I can see, there's absolutely nothing wrong with your reproductive system." The rage that had been building in Amelia's chest crystallized into diamond-hard certainty. She'd been lied to, deliberately, cruelly. Damon had paid Dr. John to make her believe she was broken, to take the fall for whatever inadequacy he was hiding. He destroyed her, divorced her, let his family torture her, all to protect a lie. Family, if you're still with me, I need you to pause and really feel this moment. Amelia is sitting in that exam room staring at 2 heartbeats on a screen, 2 babies that everyone told her she could never have, 2 pieces of evidence that everything the Coopers said about her was a lie. Can you imagine that feeling, that rage, that vindication, that absolute certainty that you were right all along, that you were never broken, never defective, never worthless, just surrounded by liars? If that's hitting you right now, if you're feeling that anger on her behalf, I need you to hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell, because this is about to get so much better. Share this video with someone who's been gaslit, who's been told they're the problem when they never were. And comment where you're watching from, or just type, "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline," because Amelia is about to do something incredible. She's about to fight back. All right, family, let's continue. Amelia made a choice in that ultrasound room. She could let it go. Focus on her twins, on her new life with Noah, on building the future instead of dwelling on the past. Or she could pursue justice, not just for herself, but for every woman Dr. John had destroyed, every person who'd been lied to, every victim of medical fraud. She chose justice. "I want to investigate," she told Noah that night. They sat in their living room, her hands on her stomach, his arm around her shoulders. "I want to prove he paid that doctor. I want to expose what they did, not just to me, but to anyone else who suffered the same lie." Noah was quiet for a moment. Then he squeezed her shoulder. "Then let's get you the best investigator money can buy." He wasn't solving it for her, wasn't taking over, just supporting her choice, giving her resources, letting her drive. They hired Lucas Montgomery, former FBI, specialized in fraud, the kind of investigator who could find anything if you gave him time and money. Amelia met him in his office 2 days later, laid out the case. "My ex-husband paid a doctor to tell me I was infertile, to blame me for fertility issues that were his. I need proof. I need to expose him, and I need to find out if he did this to anyone else." Lucas leaned back in his chair, studied her with sharp eyes that had seen everything. "If he paid the doctor, there's a paper trail. We just have to find it. Medical records are protected. Bank records need legal justification. This won't be easy or fast. Could take months. But if the evidence exists, I'll find it." They started with Amelia's complete medical file from Dr. John, requested everything, every test, every note, every record. Then Lucas started researching Dr. John's history, looking for patterns, looking for complaints, looking for anything that suggested this wasn't the first time. What he found was damning. Dr. John had been sued 3 times in the past 7 years. All cases dismissed. All settled out of court. All involving wealthy male clients and female patients diagnosed with unexplained infertility. The pattern was there, clear as day, once you knew what to look for. Lucas found 3 other women, Patricia, Maggie, and another who refused to come forward. Too scared, too traumatized, but Patricia and Maggie agreed to share their stories. The same pattern, same doctor, wealthy husbands, sudden infertility diagnosis, the wives taking the blame, divorces following shortly after, and in 2 cases, the ex-husbands remarrying and having children within years. "He told me I was the problem," Patricia said when Amelia met her for coffee. She was in her late 30s, elegant, composed, but her hands shook when she talked about it. "He showed me test results, imaging, told me my ovaries were dysfunctional. My husband divorced me 6 months later. Married his secretary a year after that. They have 2 kids now." Maggie's story was almost identical. "He said I had premature ovarian failure, that I was basically in early menopause. I was 32 years old. My husband acted so supportive, but he filed for divorce 3 weeks after the diagnosis. I found out later he'd been having an affair for months. She got pregnant immediately. Did you ever suspect the diagnosis was wrong?" Amelia asked. "Every day." Maggie's voice was fierce. "But how do you question a doctor? How do you prove it when the medical records say you're broken?" "I got second opinions. They all looked at Dr. John's notes and agreed, because doctors trust other doctors. The lie becomes truth when it's written down." Lucas kept digging, kept following threads, kept building the case, and then he found it. The smoking gun, Damon's bank records. It took legal maneuvering, took connections, took methods that existed in gray areas of the law. Amelia struggled with the ethics, with becoming like them to expose them. Do we have to break rules to get justice? She asked Noah one night. He was quiet for a long time. Sometimes the system protects the powerful. Sometimes you have to go around it. But that's your call to make. I'll support whatever you decide. She decided the truth mattered more. Lucas presented the evidence 2 weeks later. $50,000 transfer from Damon Cooper to Dr. John Medical Consulting. Dated 1 week before Amelia's diagnosis appointment. Labeled consulting fee. This is it, Lucas said. This is proof of payment. It's circumstantial. Could claim it was legitimate consultation, but combined with the pattern, with the other victims, with your healthy pregnancy, we have a case. Amelia stared at the bank records, at the proof that her destruction had a price tag. $50,000. That's what it cost to ruin her life, to make her believe she was worthless, to steal 2 years of her life. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. A lawyer could argue this away. Lucas admitted, we need more. We need direct evidence of Dr. John admitting to fraud. They kept digging, kept interviewing victims, kept building the case. Then Maggie remembered something. I kept emails, she said during their 3rd meeting, from Dr. John after the diagnosis. I was asking questions, wanting to understand. He sent me detailed explanations. She pulled them up on her phone, started scrolling, then stopped. Oh my God. What? Here, look at this. She turned her phone around, showed them an email dated 3 years earlier. Mrs. Patterson, I understand your confusion about the test results. Please know that I've adjusted the report per your husband's specific requests regarding presentation of the findings. The medical terminology can be confusing, but the conclusion remains that natural conception is not advisable in your case. Adjusted the report per your husband's requests. Lucas read it out loud, his voice sharp with excitement. That's an admission. That's direct evidence of fraud. Maggie started crying. I read that email 100 times, but I was so confused, so broken. I thought he meant he'd simplified the language for me. I didn't understand he was admitting to changing my results. They had it now, the evidence they needed. 3 victims, bank records showing payments, email evidence of Dr. John admitting to altering medical records, a pattern spanning 5 years. They took everything to a lawyer, then to the state attorney's office. Medical fraud was serious. Pattern of victims made it worse. The prosecutor opened an investigation. Dr. John would be arrested, would face charges, would lose everything. But it would take time, months maybe. Legal cases moved slowly. Amelia's twins were growing, her stomach expanding, her life moving forward while the investigation ground through bureaucracy. And across the city, Damon Cooper was building his own house of lies, about to discover that secrets don't stay buried forever. Family, we need to go back for a moment. Back to before Amelia's world started to make sense. Back to when Damon Cooper made the choice that would eventually destroy him. Because you need to understand. You need to see the original sin. The moment when he decided his comfort mattered more than someone else's life. Damon had been diagnosed with severe oligospermia at 23 years old. The doctor had been clinical about it. Your sperm count is extremely low. Natural conception would be virtually impossible. IVF with donor sperm would be your best option if you want children someday. For years, it hadn't mattered. He'd been focused on his career, on building Cooper Industries, on meeting his father's impossible expectations. The diagnosis sat in his medical file. Private, irrelevant. Then, his father died. Heart attack at 62. And suddenly, the private medical issue became a dynasty-threatening crisis. Brenda cornered him 3 days after the funeral. The company needs an heir, she said. Not, I'm sorry for your loss. Not, how are you holding up? Just the company needs an heir. Damon felt panic claw at his throat. I know. I'm working on it. Are you? Brenda's eyes were sharp. Because you've been married to that girl for 6 months and nothing. The board is starting to ask questions. About succession. About continuity. We need answers, Damon. He couldn't tell her. Couldn't admit that the Cooper line might end with him. Couldn't face her disappointment. The family's judgment. The board's concerns about leadership. So when 6 more months passed, when Amelia didn't get pregnant despite their efforts, when Brenda's pressure became unbearable, When his sisters started making comments, Damon made a choice. Dr. John's office, private consultation. I need this to be her problem, not mine. Damon slid an envelope across the desk. $50,000 in it. Tell her the issue is her uterine lining. Make it sound medical, irreversible. Make sure she believes it. Dr. John looked at the envelope. At Damon. At the envelope again. You understand what you're asking me to do. I understand I'm paying you $50,000 to protect my privacy and give my wife a medical explanation for our fertility issues. And if she wants a second opinion, she won't. Damon's voice was confident. She trusts doctors. She trusts me. Dr. John took the money. 2 weeks later, Amelia sat in that same office and was told her body was broken. Damon watched her crumble, watched her believe the lie, watched her take the blame for his inadequacy, and he felt nothing but relief. 6 months after divorcing Amelia, Damon married Becca White. The wedding was everything Brenda wanted. Society pages, designer gown, a merger of two powerful families. Becca's family invested $20 million into Cooper Industries as a wedding gift. Everyone called it a perfect match. The wedding night was a disaster. They checked into the honeymoon suite in Paris. Champagne on ice, rose petals on the bed. Becca emerged from the bathroom wearing La Perla lingerie that cost more than most people's monthly rent. She was beautiful, willing, his wife, and Damon's body wouldn't cooperate. It's okay, Becca said after 20 minutes of awkward fumbling. Her voice was gentle but confused. You're probably just exhausted. The wedding was a lot. Yeah, Damon grabbed onto the excuse. Just tired. We have 2 weeks. No rush, but the next night was the same. And the night after that. By the end of the honeymoon, Becca's patience was wearing thin. Damon, maybe you should see a doctor. This isn't normal. It's just stress. He lied. Work pressure. The merger. Give me time. Back home, he developed a rotation of excuses. Too tired. Had too much to drink at dinner. Early meeting tomorrow. Feeling under the weather. He started working late, deliberately. Coming home after Becca was asleep. Leaving before she woke up. 3 months into the marriage, Becca confronted him in their bedroom. We haven't had sex since the wedding. I know. I'm sorry. Are you having an affair? What? No. Then what's wrong? Her voice cracked. Why don't you want me? It's not you. It's work stress. The company. I just need time. How much time? He had no answer. The next day, he bought her a Cartier necklace. $20,000. I'm sorry I've been distant, he said, presenting the distinctive red box. Let me make it up to you. Becca looked at the necklace. At him. Something cold flickered in her eyes. You think jewelry fixes this. I think it shows I'm thinking about you. I don't want diamonds, Damon. I want my husband. But he couldn't give her that, so he gave her more jewelry instead. More excuses, more distance. 6 months into the marriage, Becca stopped trying, stopped initiating, stopped asking questions, but she started investigating. Your first wife, she said one night over dinner, the one who couldn't have children. Damon's fork froze. What about her? Did you ever get tested? To make sure the problem wasn't you? Of course. The doctor confirmed it was all her. Which doctor? Dr. John. Why does this matter? Becca studied him with eyes that saw too much. Just curious. Since we seem to be having the same problem. Damon felt ice slide down his spine. That's completely different. I told you, it's stress. Right, stress. Becca's smile didn't reach her eyes. How convenient. Now, family, we're back at the gala. Where this all started. Where Damon's lies finally caught up to him. The International Business Summit. 500 people. The elite of the elite. Wealth and power concentrated in one glittering ballroom. Noah Clark being honored for his philanthropic work. The Clark Foundation making a major announcement. And Amelia, 8 months pregnant with twins, about to tell her truth. She'd been scared to come. scared to enter those social circles again, scared to risk encountering the Coopers. But Noah needed her there, and she was done hiding, done being ashamed of something that was never her fault. They arrived at the Grand Regency Hotel, marble floors, crystal chandeliers, the kind of venue that cost $250,000 just to rent. Amelia wore an emerald gown that accommodated her growing belly, sapphire jewelry that caught the light. She looked like she owned the world, because in many ways she did. They were seated at the VIP platform, the section reserved for billionaires, the elite table Damon had never been wealthy enough to access. Amelia sat there by right now, by her success, by Noah's wealth, by the life she'd built. She saw them almost immediately. Damon near the bar with Becca, Brenda, Cynthia, and Laura trailing behind. He looked older, more stressed, lines around his eyes that hadn't been there 2 years ago. Becca looked unhappy, tight mouth, tense posture. Amelia felt nothing. Pain, no longing, no wish to be part of that world again, just mild curiosity about how they'd react. Brenda spotted her first, froze mid-conversation, grabbed Damon's arm with nails that probably left marks. Damon turned, followed his mother's horrified stare, saw Amelia at the very important personable, saw Noah Clark beside her, saw her pregnant belly, very obviously pregnant. The champagne glass slipped from his fingers, shattered against marble, but he didn't hear it, just stared. The MC called for attention, lights dimmed. Noah was introduced to thunderous applause. He took the stage, spoke about the Clark Foundation's work, about innovation and responsibility, and using wealth for good. Tonight I'm proud to announce a $50 million commitment to women's health initiatives. Applause filled the ballroom, specifically to combat medical malpractice and unethical doctors who weaponize diagnoses to serve powerful men's agendas. The applause faltered. Confusion rippled through the audience. My wife has personal experience with this issue. Noah turned, gestured to Amelia. She joined him on stage, her heart racing, her hands steady. This was it, the moment she'd been building toward 2 years ago. Her voice carried through the microphone with perfect clarity. A doctor told me I could never have children, that my body was fundamentally broken, inhospitable, he called it. She paused, let the words settle. I believed him, because he was an expert, because I trusted medical authority, and because the man I'd married needed me to be the problem. Her eyes found Damon across the ballroom. I was wrong to believe either of them. My body was never broken. The marriage was, and these 2 babies I'm carrying are proof that sometimes the cruelest lies come from people who claim to love you. The applause started slowly, then built, standing ovation, people understanding exactly what she was saying, whispers spreading, eyes turning toward Damon. The Clark Foundation will be funding investigations into doctors who falsify diagnoses for financial gain. Noah continued, we'll be supporting women who've been lied to, who've been made to believe their bodies failed when the real failure was in the men who manipulated them. Amelia took the microphone back. I'm sharing my story, not for revenge, but so other women know they're not alone. If a diagnosis doesn't feel right, if you're being pressured to accept a conclusion that serves someone else's narrative, get a second opinion. Demand transparency. Trust your instincts. She looked directly at Damon. Because sometimes the people who should protect us are the ones doing the damage, and we deserve better. The ballroom erupted. She walked off stage, back to the VIP table, sat down with quiet satisfaction, and that's when Becca's voice cut through the applause, loud enough for 3 tables to hear. Who is that woman, Damon? It wasn't a question. It was an accusation. Damon, please, let me explain. Explain what? Becca stood, her voice rising. That you destroyed an innocent woman to hide your own inadequacy. Keep your voice down. But her voice only got louder. Is that why you won't touch me? Why you've avoided intimacy for our entire marriage? Because you knew if I didn't get pregnant, I'd start asking questions. Tables around them went silent. Everyone listening. Phones recording. That's not. Damon started. How much? Becca demanded. How much did you pay the doctor to lie? Silence. His mouth opened, closed. How much, Damon? 50,000. The admission hung in the air like a bomb. Becca laughed. It was terrible. You paid $50,000 to destroy her, to make her believe she was broken, so you could divorce her without anyone knowing the truth. She turned to Brenda. Your son has been lying to you for years. He's the one who can't have children. He always was. And he let you torture that poor woman rather than admit it. Brenda's face transformed. Horror replacing confusion. You knew. She breathed. You knew you were the problem, and you let us. She couldn't finish. Becca removed her rings, dropped them on the table. I'm filing for divorce. My father's company will immediately divest from Cooper Industries. And you can explain to everyone here why the White family wants nothing to do with you. She gathered her purse, looked back at Damon one last time. I actually feel sorry for her. Nodding toward Amelia. She loved you. She trusted you. She believed you when you said she was the problem. I tried to love you too, but you're not worth it. You're a coward hiding behind women's pain. She walked away. The entire ballroom watched Damon sit there exposed, destroyed by his own lies. Reporters surrounded him. Photos taken, his carefully constructed life burning in real time. Across the ballroom, Amelia held Noah's hand and smiled. She hadn't said Damon's name, hadn't directly accused him, just told her truth, and he destroyed himself. The media firestorm was immediate. Story on every news site. Medical fraud scandal rocks elite summit. Photos of Damon's face. Video of Becca's confrontation going viral. Social media exploding. Cooper Industries stock dropped. White family publicly announced divestment. Other investors followed. 2 weeks after the gala, Dr. John was arrested. Medical fraud. Falsifying records. Accepting bribes. Amelia testified at his trial. So did Patricia. So did Maggie. 5 more women came forward during the trial. The evidence was overwhelming. I trusted him, Amelia said from the witness stand. I believed him when he said I was broken. I carried that shame for 2 years. It destroyed my marriage, my self-worth, my hope. He didn't just lie to me. He weaponized medicine to ruin my life. The jury deliberated for 3 hours, found Dr. John guilty on all counts. 5 years in prison, permanent revocation of medical license, $500,000 in fines, restitution to victims. On the courthouse steps, a reporter asked, "Do you feel vindicated?" Amelia's hand rested on her pregnant belly. I feel like justice was served, not just for me, but for every woman he lied to, every person he hurt to serve someone else's agenda. Damon's life collapsed systematically. Becca's divorce was finalized in 3 months. White family withdrew all investment. Cooper Industries hemorrhaged clients, partners, ended associations. The company sold within a year for a fraction of its value. 3-generation family business gone. Brenda withdrew from society. Invitations stopped. Friends distanced. Her social empire crumbled. She lived alone in the mansion, destroyed by her own cruelty. Cynthia's marriage strained. Laura's engagement ended. The Cooper name became toxic. The family fractured, scattered, diminished. Damon ended up in a modest apartment. Not poor, but no longer elite. His reputation destroyed. He sent letters to Amelia. Apologies, explanations, begging forgiveness. She never responded, never read them. He was irrelevant to her now. Amelia's twins were born healthy. Robbie and Rachel. Perfect, beautiful. Proof that her body had never been broken. She held them and cried. Not from pain, from joy, from vindication, from the overwhelming relief of knowing she'd been right all along. Amelia's table expanded to 8 locations, magazine covers, cookbook deals. But those accomplishments weren't her greatest joy. Her greatest joy was Sunday mornings, with twins climbing into bed demanding pancakes, date nights with Noah, holiday celebrations with Michelle, the messy, beautiful, chaotic reality of family. 3 years after the divorce, Robbie asked a question while they cooked together. "Mommy, why don't we have a grandma like other kids? You have Grandma Michelle, but not from your side." Amelia chose her words carefully. "Sometimes families look different. Sometimes the people who should love us aren't capable of it. That's sad, but it doesn't mean we're missing anything important, because we have so much love right here. What about the man at the gala, the one staring at us? Is he family?" Amelia's hands stilled. She'd thought they were too young to remember. "No," she said firmly. "He's not family. He's no one important. Okay." Robbie accepted this easily, went back to helping measure flour. Noah appeared in the doorway, watching with soft eyes. "Everything okay?" "Perfect." Amelia smiled. "Everything is absolutely perfect." And she meant it. Family, we've reached the end of Amelia's story. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that you're more than anyone's cruelty ever claimed, I need you to do something for me right now. Hit that like button. Show me that stories of real justice and resilience matter to you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Someone who's been told they're broken. Someone who's been gaslit. Someone who's wondering if they'll ever be enough. Subscribe to Mr Hearthline Stories, because I bring you these stories every single week. Stories about people who refuse to stay down, who fight for justice, who prove that dignity and truth are more powerful than lies. Turn on those notifications. Never miss a story. And comment below. Tell me where you're watching from. What part of Amelia's story hit you hardest? Or just type, "I'm with you, Mr. Hearthline, so I know you made it to the end." This community is built on supporting each other. Your stories matter. Your voice matters. So use that comment section. Let's build something powerful together. I'm Mr. Hearthline, and I'll see you in the next story. Until then, remember, choose to rise, choose to rebuild, choose freedom, and watch how extraordinary your life becomes. Family, I'm with you, always.